Hello, Internet. So, one thing that I have been thinking about a lot, has been feminism. There's like what feminism is academically speaking, and then what feminism has been in real life, and the interpretation of feminism through Facebook and a lot of the memes and YouTube videos and all those like weird feminist cringe comps and SJW cringe comps. And I think a lot of it, in terms of like real life issues that I see happening, is that like the roles and expectations placed on both men and women are completely outdated for the 21st century. And I think a lot of that became very prevalent to me after Occupy, because so many men committed a high rate of suicide. I think that the suicide rate for men is still relatively high. It's like at 76, almost 80% of suicides are done by men. Like they're 3 times more likely to commit suicide than women. And this is something that isn't brought up in feminism. But I'm kind of getting off topic here. And a lot of it had to do at the time with the fact that men have a hardline expectation put on them to the idea that in order to be considered a good man or a man at all means to be a good provider and to have a job, to have your own place, to be your own man, quote unquote. And obviously so many guys, and even still now, especially now after COVID, can't get to that economic milestone that was viable for their fathers, but they're still made to be in comparison with a lot of their dads. Oh, why can't you do it? I was able to do it when I was your age, kind of crap. And completely out of touch with the kind of economic reality that we currently find ourselves in, or at least a lot of the reality that I know in my life as a millennial. I know. And it was hard for everybody, but I think particularly it was hard on millennial men because of that societal expectation that men are supposed to have it together and be the provider. And women can kind of get away with it. But the other part of that factor is that even if you're able to get married nowadays, which is a big if, both people have to work. Both men and women need to work because the cost of living is so incredibly high that, like, putting it on one person's plate is just unfair and unrealistic, to say the least. So, it also, on top of that, there are family court issues that, are unfavorable towards men, whether they intend to be or not. Granting full custody to the kids, to the mother, I don't agree with this whatsoever. This is not good for the kids. It's not good for anybody. It should just strictly be based on who has the emotional, mental capacity to raise a child on their own if it comes to a divorce. And when it comes to women, it's like, yes, I think that if a woman chooses to want to be like one of these trad wives types, these homemakers or whatever, That's nice. That's fine. But I just don't think it's something that you should push on women, especially young girls. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. You want to personally choose to live that kind of life? Sure. But the idea and notion that you're going to find one man who's going to provide everything for you is extremely unlikely. I'm not saying it's completely unlikely. It's just extremely unlikely, even if that's what you wanted to do. And even being a career woman full-time won't leave you totally fulfilled either. And as someone who's slightly older, I kind of don't know what pathway to tell younger women other than to say, don't put some unrealistic expectation on the opposite sex as to solve all your problems. No one person's going to come in and just solve everything for you. That's up to you. That's what being an adult is. You have to save yourself. You can't expect a man or a woman or anybody for that matter to come in and save you from something. But again, derailing again. Feminism as a whole has done an awful lot of good for women. I mean, look at me. I'm a whammon. But I think that we need to come to terms with the kind of economic and social realities we currently live in and stop putting such unrealistic expectations on both men and women, for that matter. We're not going to go back to the days of our grandparents. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that was back then. That's not the 21st century. You know, they don't have 21st century problems. Also, I think a lot of people have an unrealistic expectation of what marriage is supposed to be in the first place. A lot of us grew up in divorced households, so we don't know what a healthy household is supposed to even look like to begin with. I mean, maybe if you were lucky, maybe you did have a traditional family household and whatnot, but that's very rare nowadays. It's a very complicated situation. I think when a lot of it gets discussed, I think the aspect of like economics gets like left out of the equation. And it's like you either get a bunch of people who are just way far on the right who say that we need to go back to our grandmother's age and that we should abolish the 19th Amendment, which, no, we're not going to that. And then there are feminists who go way out there who say we need a fucking curfew. I kid you not. I forget where I saw this. If I find it, I'll link it. But if I can't, I don't know what to say. But there was somewhere, I want to believe in the UK, where some feminist recommended, or it could have been on Twitter, where somebody had recommended a 6 p.m. curfew for men. I'm like, wow, that's great. That's total equality. That's totally what we're looking for here, bucko. You know? There's just no way you're going to be able to live back then, even if you wanted to. And most people can't. They just plain can't. But I also don't think promoting like the career woman aspect of things is really healthy for anybody either. You know. I got really caught up with a lot of those anti-feminist videos back in 2015, 2016, along with a lot of like anti-SJW videos. And I have to say, like, some of that shit was very true. I mean, I remember being in Occupy, and I would see women who would act like this, who were loud and abrasive, and who had really insane theories about things and had like borderline turf ideals. And you don't bring women, let alone men, into the conversation when you talk like that. Nobody is appealed by that whatsoever. And it kind of goes into this idea of like, when it comes to certain aspects of the left, and particularly those who are wrapped up in like feminism in particular, there's a kind of language of, you know, polite behaviors and attitudes that are applied, certain manners and mannerisms that are applied to this entire kind of culture and idea that like your average person just isn't gonna know or even fucking care about, honestly. I think there are plenty of things that like feminists are right about, but you know what? There's plenty of things that men's rights are about that I would like to see people talk about, like the male suicide being one of them, men's mental health in general, the fact that so many men die from doing so many hard jobs all the time, you know, it's ridiculous. If the point is to try and achieve equality, degrading the opposite sex does nobody any good, you know? People are already isolated enough as it is. You don't have to, like, put all these, like, really insane expectations on the opposite sex. It's not good. Well, that was just a quick thought. Tell me what you think down in the comments below. Night.